Welcome back to the Blackletter podcast. We set out to create an entertaining and exciting podcast about law and business. Blackletter, the name, comes from the Gothic typeset. Over time, Blackletter became the only font that English law books were printed in. It made it harder for kind of the common person to understand what the English law books said. Blackletter came to represent something that was law, that was set in stone, that was sort of old and a well-settled fundamental principle of law. We're here to demystify black-letter law. We're here to demystify things that happen in business and law and where those two meet. And I hope you have fun listening. Hi, Tom Dunlap back with the Blackletter podcast. And for our third segment, I've got Will Russel with me today, again from Russell Marketing, russellmarketing.co if you want to see his website. We talked about what he does, where he came from, England, because his shirt even says it. He's got a brand of where he came from on him. And then we talked about, in the last segment, some challenges he's overcome. Two challenges in particular. One was a failed business and what he learned from that. And the second was the challenge he's facing now, growing revenue without growing the scale of his team, which despite his goal not to do that, he's bringing in a BD manager. But it sounds like this week we're going to talk about two or three things that he says we can take away as a business and learn from his experience with all of these other businesses, launching them, and his own business. And I think probably number one we covered last week. It's vetting what you're going to do before you do it. Pre-product launch testing beyond your friends and family, because everybody does that, right? Well, we see people walk into our law firm and they're like, I want to patent this because I think it's a good idea. And well, you're going to spend $10,000 patenting that. Do you think it's great that you think it's a good idea, but do you want to sell it? That's a different thing. So tell us, Will, you're on the spot, and I prepared you, so I don't feel bad asking you. What do you think the one or two or three takeaways that you could share with the audience that you've learned in your career, such as it is?
Well, from my career, I'm in the service-based business, so I think the biggest thing I take with me every day is just to be a good human being. And I know it sounds ridiculous and ridiculously obvious, but I think there's a lot of advice out there and a lot of business people out there who believe they have to position themselves on a pedestal,
Okay.
rather than just being themselves, being good, being responsive, being open, being transparent. And so that's kind of one thing. But there's a couple of pieces of advice that I got very early on that I think are very applicable to any entrepreneur and stuck with me. The first, let's stick with the English theme, comes from English comedian Ricky Gervais.
Oh,
And
gosh.
I've got a quote from I've got a quote from him on my wall. Nobody knows what they're doing either. And I think as a new entrepreneur in particular, it's easy to look at successful entrepreneurs and think, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I don't know the secret. But at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to do the best they can with what they have. And we're all learning new things every day.
Fair.
So nobody knows the secret to life. If you have a passion for something, move forward with it and believe in yourself. I would also, along those lines, something that really astonished me when I started my own business was that I felt there's no one rule with how everything must be done. I went to a private boarding school and I guess I was just under the impression that my life had to follow a certain path. And when I got into entrepreneurship and I started my business and I started reading more about other entrepreneurs, it's just the framework of life or business or career was just completely blown out of the water. And it was clear that if I wanted to pursue something, that I'm not murdering the world, but if I wanted to pursue something that didn't harm anyone and was good, then I have the ability and there's nothing stopping me. And so I think that perseverance and the fact that those limitations oftentimes only exist in someone's mind versus in reality are really important lessons that I learned and have really helped me. So I think they would help any new or even not new entrepreneur.
I hear that all the time, actually, Will. At these entrepreneurship summits I go to, they even have sessions called Taking the Leap. And the
Mm,
taking the leap conversation is always around that mental switch in your head where you're like, I work for someone, but now I'm not going to work for anyone, and kind of throwing yourself into the void and realizing that You just have to say, it sounds trite, right? You're saying it. I can do it.
Mm.
I could just go ahead and do this
Mhm.
thing over and over and over again every day that
Mhm.
you wake up as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fantastic. I like the Ricky Gervais quote too. So it's nobody knows what they're doing, and the key part of that sentence is either, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's, I don't know if I quoted him exactly right.
Yeah, he said something like, my favorite quote I ever heard was, "Nobody knows what they're doing either." Because
Yeah,
you look at Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or
right.
Elon Musk, you think they must have something I don't have. And yeah, sure, it's not like you're apples to apples. However, Elon Musk doing whatever he's doing on Mars, in space. He doesn't know what he's
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
He's just winging it, obviously educated winging it. But we're all just doing the best we can with the information we have, and no one has all the secrets. So don't feel like you're missing out or imposter syndrome, because you have just as much chance of succeeding in this than anyone else.
So to sum it up, and the vetting thing is important, but you've got what your first point was. How would you summarize your first point?
Well, it was be a good human, wasn't it?
Just be a good human. So I like that. Number one, be a good human. Number two, nobody else knows what they're doing either.
Yeah.
And number three was
Just like there's no one rule for
there's
how
no
to
one,
do things or how to structure your life. Yeah.
unless it's a ring from J.R.R. Tolkien, which is there is one ring to rule them
Yeah.
all. There's no
Well,
rule to ring them all. I don't know. But
speaking to lawyers, I think maybe there might be more frameworks for you than for me, but the concept remains.
yes, there are more rules on law firms, but we try to break those rules in legitimate, non-hurtful, non-illegal ways. We try to break the rules that society seems to impose on what a law firm should be.
Hmm.
So I agree with you. There aren't rules, and if you break them, your life and practice can be better. Your world can be better. So totally.
Hmm.
So anything else you want to add for the good of the cause? Will, did I summarize that well, or did I miss
You
summarize?
you summarized it great. No, I mean, you can talk with fellow entrepreneurs all day on mistakes and aspirations and what's worked and what hasn't. But at the end of the day, I think what those three things we just went through, it's up to the individual. It's depend on the individual, and they're going to have their own experience. Just know that they take it step by step, day by day, and persevere, and good things are going to happen.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Will. And thank you, audience, for joining us. Will and Will Russell at russellmarketing.co. If you want to visit Will and check out his website. That's all for today's episode of Blackletter. Thanks again for listening. Join us next time when we talk about more Blackletter issues in creative ways. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, and check out our website at blackletterstudios.com.